Hello and welcome to the Podquest of Bread. My most fervent wish is that I will not be replaced until a new president is installed. Tonight we're going to have a little discussion on the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, what its implications are on the 2020 election, what its implications are on the democracy as a whole, and what its implications on the republic are. Just a brief synopsis and to understand. One, Ruth Bader Ginsburg did a lot of good. She progressed a lot she pushed forward for a lot of women's rights. She made she faced insurmountable odds in order to push forth things that typically would have never been pushed forth on an all-male dominated conservative Supreme Court. Now, that is her background. That is her history. But there's one thing that she was, especially sitting on the Supreme Court of the United States, that needs to be understood. She was a fourth liberal against five conservatives on the Supreme Court. Her mere presence on the Supreme Court helped block a lot of things that, especially on the Trump presidency, were attempted to be pushed through the Supreme Court. Her presence on the Supreme Court actually helped balance out the powers and was probably one of the few examples of the checks and balances that I believe even exists at this point, and now it doesn't exist. So her death puts us in a very interesting position, in a very interesting predicament, where the President of the United States now has the power to appoint someone to the Supreme Court who will likely be a Republican-backed conservative, changing the balance of power in the Supreme Court to 6 conservatives and 3 liberals, and that sets a dangerous precedent. It sets a dangerous precedent not only for women, but for the democracy and the republic as a whole, because it puts unchecked power into the president's hands. Now, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, of course, before she died, through her niece, released what I read here, the quote, "My most fervent wish is that I will not be replaced until a new president is installed." And while all well and good, while asking that she not be replaced until there is a new president, that would require morals from a fascist dictator who seeks to just have total domination and power. Now, let's just talk about things that are now at threat. Abortion, elections, healthcare, gender equality. These are all things that are at threat now. The conservative-backed Supreme Court really has a strong motivation to overturn the rulings on abortion in the United States, effectively making abortion illegal in the United States. Women's equality and gender equality in the United States are at an all-time high risk. It was quoted earlier today that from someone that I follow, or after the breaking of the news, I apologize, that the two things that they are most concerned about if they were to occur leading into the 2020 election would have been 1, war with Iran, 2, the death of RBG. We are now here at 2. Now, going forward on this, this appointment, because we know that Donald Trump will not honor her final wishes. Donald Trump's not going to wait. He's not going to leave the seat vacant. There's too much power within that. With her on the Supreme Court, the power was split, like I said, between 5 conservatives and 4 liberals. Now it will be 5 conservatives, 3 liberals, and likely a 6th once Trump appoints them, because we know Trump will appoint a conservative-leaning justice to fill the role. So that really is a major shift in power. That is a major shift in policy, and that is a major shift in how the Supreme Court rules. That would be Trump's 3rd appointment to the Supreme Court, which means he will have 3 likely loyalists on the Supreme Court backing him, putting massive massive unchecked power into the hands of the president of the United States. And that's what I really want to focus on here, because this is a huge thing to look at. Massive unchecked powers into the hands of the president of the United States. From here on, I will refer to him as the fascist. On this podcast, I have talked about the dangers of the Trump presidency far too many times. I've discussed how dangerous he is. I've discussed what a maniac he is, how filled with rage and power he is, and how much he thrives on that. He has no care for constitutional law. He has no care for what the Constitution limits him to do, and he has no care for any of the traditional checks and balances that would keep the presidency in line. If Trump has 3 Trump loyalists on the Supreme Court, being that he will more than likely appoint one, Donald Trump will then also have unchecked power when he's challenged at the Supreme Court level. The 5 or at that point would be 6 conservatives, could just, interpret the Constitution how they feel. They could interpret the Constitution to be in Donald Trump's favor. They could interpret what he's doing to follow the Constitution in some weird way, and he could really just do anything he wants. This is a dangerous time. I've seen multiple people refer to this as the most danger the Republic has been in recent times. I've already heard people saying that this is the death of democracy and the death of the Republic. It's an insanely shocking moment to be in, and it's very scary to look at, because we are literally looking at the final check and balance on the president's powers is now not there. Now, there's still hope. There is still a chance that we could avoid that type of situation. It would require 4 senators to stand up and say, we're not going to vote to approve a appointee. If 4 senators stood up and said they would not support or appoint or approve a appointee, we could avoid that and potentially stave this off until after the election. And then, depending upon how the election turns out, we handle it at that point. But if 4 senators do not stand up and say, we're not going to allow this, her final wishes were to wait until the next president's installed, and we are going to respect those wishes, we're going to see what I fear come to life. Now, I also want to discuss something else before I hop off here, because tonight's episode was going to be a discussion on climate change. Tonight's episode was going to be titled Alpha. That will now be happening Sunday. I wanted to make sure I talked about the death of RBG. I wanted to make sure that I kind of discussed the thought process I'm going through here. It's why it's a little less traditional than what I have, where I actually have a ton of notes ready to go. But the last thing I kind of want to hit on here, and it's possibly more of a more important thing to discuss, is that Donald Trump, by moving forward with this, he is going to more than likely select someone who will cement his policies. His other 2 appointees were people that will cement his policies, but they're also likely to sometimes go against him when they really feel that they must. This one, I have a feeling, will be very different. It'll be someone that will fall in lockstep with them. It'll be someone who, even though Trump has insulted them or defame them in some way, they are going to stand fast by him, and they're going to look towards everything he does and say, yes, that's fine. This is going to be someone that is in stark contrast to his other 2 appointees. And that's something that we also need to watch out for. And the last thing I will say is, to anybody that's celebrating her death in any way, shape, or form, or making jokes about her death, her body's not cold. And with that being said, just give a time for her family to grieve. I know we are in an insanely politically divided world, and I know we live in this time in this country where politics divides us, and whether you're a liberal or conservative, a leftist or a righty, Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, Green Party, whatever you name it, a progressive, I know that seems to change how we view each other. But let's, instead of doing that, let's just sit for a moment and recognize that someone who championed women's rights and championed gender equality and championed a lot of amazing progressive platforms is now dead. And now the democracy hangs in the hands of the Senate. Stay beautiful, humans.